Yeah, if you can somewhat contain that pass rush, I think he can do some things because we know Diggs is an all or nothing guy. He either gives up a big play or he gets a pick. So he's certainly a guy you could pick on a little bit, I think, if you do it the right way. But you're right. It's all about the pass rush. I envision them against the Eagles. They're not going to take the Vikings approach where they're sitting back. It's going to be just send the house, man.
Here he is, Rob Ellis. I guess did you burn the midnight oil last night, Rob, or did you just happen to get up early this morning?
No, I watched all the game last night. Absolutely. I mean, it was pretty compelling game. It was CeeDee Lamb makes the great catch after dropping one that was, about as easy as it gets a little bit earlier in the game, but it was I actually found it entertaining. I thought it was a pretty good game. No, so I guess I'm burning the midnight oil.
Yeah. Did you think it was the Buck Aikman impact, or do you watch the Manning cast when you watch Monday nights?
I watch Buck Aikman. I'll flip over at times to the Manning cast, but that's not my primary. I guess I want more sort of X's and O's and that kind of production. I don't mind the Manning cast. I'll jump over to it. I think they're both hilarious, and it's amazing the niche that they've sort of carved out here as almost a comedy duo in some ways. I think they're awesome in that sense. But no, I stick with pretty much the main broadcast the whole time.
Yeah, watching Eli Manning do a Giants game last night was kind of hilarious because Peyton's like, what a catch. And I got both of them on. And Eli just kind of stands there with that Eli face for a good 5 seconds. He's like, yeah, it was all right.
Yeah. But and they know how to egg each other and needle each other. That's the stuff I love.
Yeah, last night, though, I agree. It was a compelling game. It looked terrible in the first half. Both teams finally got going, but I've been harping on this on the broadcast since I came on the air. Daniel Jones just stinks.
All right, here's my takeaway, Jeff. I didn't think he was that horrible last night. I think his offensive line may be the worst in football. I mean, it's right there with Washington. There's two teams in the division that have horrendous offensive lines in Washington and New York. So, I mean, he was, to his credit, running for his life a lot of times. So I can't completely kill him last. I'm not a fan. And I don't think he's going to be back. And I think they made that pretty obvious when they didn't extend him. But I'm not killing him for last night. I thought he was okay last night, made a couple plays last night. Look, they were a fraudulent 2-0. I mean, let's be real. It's more of an indictment of the teams that they beat than it is that they're good. I think Dable's has them on the right path, but they're not very good right now.
Yeah, I was really upset in how Evan Neal played. And I thought Michael Parsons and them would give him a challenge, but he just did not look ready. I thought him and Andrew Thomas were significantly better than what they were. And you're right. Maybe I just overestimated how better that offensive line actually was.
Did you? They gave a stat during the game. Buck and Aikman did about, I think it was over like the last either 15 or 12 years. They haven't re-signed one of the first, second, or third rounders they've taken in the offensive line. They haven't extended or something like that after their first contract.
2010, yeah. I want to say it was.
Is it that far back? Yeah, so it's 2010. I mean, that was like, whoa, you talk about not being able to judge a position. Remember how long we killed Howie for receivers and corners and all that kind of thing? The Giants have not had a handle on this thing. I think with Shane and with Dable, they're headed in the right direction. They're not there yet, but you're right. Neal really stood out. I mean, they were even trying to give him help with guys chipping, whether it was tight ends or running backs, and nothing seemed to work. I mean, he could have been sacked 10 times easily, and Jones was running for his life.
The thing I really took away from that is, and I've been trying to tell Eagles fans this for a month now, Dallas is for real because of that defensive line. They can just get after you. Michael Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Neville Gallimore. They got guys in there that they're going to get to the quarterback. They don't care who the offensive line they're facing is.
Yeah, if you can somewhat contain that pass rush, I think he can do some things because we know Diggs is an all or nothing guy. He either gives up a big play or he gets a pick. So he's certainly a guy you could pick on a little bit, I think, if you do it the right way. But you're right. It's all about the pass rush. I envision them against the Eagles. They're not going to take the Vikings approach where they're sitting back. It's going to be just send the house, man. And they have a lot of relentless guys. Lawrence is relentless. Parsons is relentless. There's a lot of guys on that defense. You're right. Dallas, I think what's happened, Jeff, is people have gone the other way with Dallas. Like, oh, they stink. Dallas doesn't stink. And Cooper Rush is kind of holding the fort in a way. And I think it seems like Prescott's going to be back sooner rather than later with some of the things they were saying last night. So, yeah, I wouldn't write Dallas off quite yet.
Yeah, I got to do one thing I learned about each team every week for CBS.
Mhm.
And my thing is for Dallas right now, I don't think they should rush to, yeah, no pun
No
intended here.
pun intended. Yeah.
Yeah, rush to bench Cooper Rush. I think they should tell Dak, hey, you know what? Take another week, take 2 weeks, or we'll get you ready for the Rams. But I don't think they need Dak Prescott to beat Washington this week.
Yeah, and I think despite what Jerry Jones says, I think that's going to be the organizational approach. They can play it off to Dak like, hey, man, we just want to make sure you're completely healed. We don't want to have any kind of setback. We don't make sure you're good to go. When there's a little bit of the thought like, this dude's not playing bad. I mean, if you think about it, if CeeDee Lamb catches that one earlier, it's probably not the game that it ended up being. Like he made enough plays and they're still pretty banged up. Like they're missing some significant pieces. I'll tell you the other thing, and I'm not breaking news here, but Zeke Elliott's a shell. He is a shell of what he was, and that's pretty obvious. I mean, Gallup or Pollard is the guy back there, as far as I'm concerned. If I need tough yards, and he's not a big bruising kind of guy, and Aikman pointed this out too, but I'm going Pollard there.
You definitely paid Ezekiel Elliott based on his first 3 years rather than what you were going to get from him. And you're seeing it like the only reason they play Ezekiel Elliott is because they're paying him.
It's cash.
Yeah,
100%. Yep.
It's absolutely ridiculous how much Ezekiel Elliott gets the ball. He doesn't have that breakaway speed. He's definitely not that receiver out of the backfield anymore. And look, Dallas knows they have to give the ball to Tony Pollard if they want to keep winning.
Yeah, and I think we'll see more of that. Like Kellen Moore's done a nice job kind of balancing that early, but eventually when push comes to shove, I'm not saying Zeke isn't getting any touches. He is, but I think that the balance of that is going to be more Pollard than it is Zeke.
So overall, though, when we look at the state of this division, obviously the Eagles are the cream of the crop right now at 3-0. Dallas is right there.
Mm-hmm.
Are the Giants of Washington going to stay in this thing, or are they just going to fade into the sunset, if you will?
I don't think they're going to fade in that, you're looking at 1 or 2 more wins for them. I think they're going to, I think both are under 500. I think both are probably in the 6 to 7-ish kind of range, maybe topping out at 8, but even that's a stretch as far as I'm concerned. Look, I mean, we saw what Washington is. It's a bad offensive line with a quarterback who's got happy feet, and that's being kind. That's a bad combination. It doesn't matter how good Jahan Dotson is. It doesn't matter how good Terry McLaurin is. Some of the other weapons that they have, Samuel. It doesn't matter because of that combination. And good teams will expose that. Like they were able to hang around a little bit against some of the other teams that they played in the early going. And to the Giants' credit, like I don't think there's any quit in them like there maybe was the last couple of years because Dable's doing a good job. But they're not good enough. They're simply not talented enough as far as I'm concerned. Like Washington, you could pass the interior of that defensive line. There's not a whole lot. Maybe when they get Chase Young back, but get off of the defensive line. There's not a whole lot that's special on that side of the ball. And their O-line stinks. So, they have issues. And the Giants, very bad. Maybe the worst offensive line in football. Daniel Jones is going to get killed. Like, there's no way he's the starting quarterback, say, week 12. I don't know how he survived last night. He took some nasty shots. So, from that standpoint, and they just lack talent in general. It's years of poor drafting that's really catching up to them.
For the Giants, I don't even think they want Daniel Jones to be a starting quarterback week 12. I think they're ready to go to Tyrod Taylor at that point if that comes to fruition. Right now, I just don't think any quarterback on the Giants roster is going to be their quarterback next year. It just seems like 2022 is a year to evaluate. We win games, awesome. It kind of, in a way, feels like Doug Pearson's first year with the Eagles without that franchise.
Yeah, without McNabb sitting there. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And they may also be looking at it once we get later in the season and they're really out of it when you can't justify it. Right now they're 2-1, so they have to, I think you get towards the end of the year and they may be in wink, tank mode to try and get one of these quarterbacks that's going to be coming out. That's when it could look vastly different. But I know he's a rookie. I know it's 3 games, but I think he's going to get better, but Neal looks way worse than I thought he was going to look. I liked him coming out of Bama.
He was my pick to be number 1. I thought Jacksonville should have taken him. It turns out, hey, look, I'm not a GM. I'm not Trent Baalke. I'm not Doug Pearson. Doug Pearson obviously made the right moves with that offensive line. They haven't allowed a sack in the last 2 games, and that's the first time Jacksonville's done that in 15 years. It's that Jacksonville team is for real, and I think they could present a huge problem for Philly on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where before the season started, you looked at it and you said, there's one of the automatic wins for the Eagles. This is so far from an automatic win. And I know the spread's like 6.5 or whatever. That's a high line as far as I'm concerned. I think this is going to be a really competitive game. They've done a good job. Like, I'll give them credit. I think they've done a nice job drafting and being willing to spend, and in some cases overspend just to get people there. Christian Kirk's an overspend, and I thought, they were paid him almost like he's a number one. He's not a number one, but he's playing well for them. What they did was they first and foremost, they realized they got to protect Trevor Lawrence, or else you get these guys beat up too early when they're young, Jeff, and they just become shot fighters. And I think they did a good job of A, protecting him, and B, giving him some help. They have a nice little running back combo there with Robinson and ETN too. So yeah, and Doug is a guy who's been there through the quick fixer upper. So I think that's a nice combination they have going there.
That defense too. Devin Lloyd was a guy I really want the Eagles to get if they didn't trade the draft pick. And Devin Lloyd has just been a playmaker across sport. Trayvon Walker's been a playmaker for them. They really have done a nice job at just being competent in 2022. Something that I know Urban Meyer was a god-awful head coach and a god-awful person. But overall, it just feels like with that, the way that division is going, I wouldn't be shocked if Jacksonville ended up winning 8-9 games at this point.
It's a bad division, right? I mean, you look at it, I guess Indy all of a sudden, to an extent, getting that win kind of righted things because they do have the tie. It's like 1-1-1 doesn't look all that bad. But you look at the rest of it, Houston, there's not a ton there. I didn't like the Titans going into the season at all. I thought they didn't do anything to replace A.J. Brown. And the result of that is teams are just basically saying, we're stopping Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's got to be, his frustration level's got to be through the roof. So I agree with you. Like Jacksonville at worst is going to hang around probably until the last couple of weeks of the season.
My biggest issue with the NFL in general was this year. I was never a fan of Josh McDaniels. I really didn't want the Eagles to hire him. I think he's a terrible head coach, terrible game manager. Dennis Allen is the same way. How did these two get jobs?
Well, I will say this. Generally Belichick's guys are like kryptonite. You just get away from them. Like his assistants do not generally do well in the league. I mean, look at the track record. It's not just bad. It's like down in flames kind of bad. So yeah, I hear you with McDaniel. I think they should have kept the special teams coach in place. He actually did a pretty good job, but he wasn't a sexy enough name, I guess, for Mark Davis in Vegas. I think that had a lot to do with it. Rich Bisaccia. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but yeah, I'm with you on that. Who was the other name that you threw out there was Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen was a case of just being there. I think that was a case of wanting to keep continuity there. I mean, you could have done it with Carmichael, the offensive coordinator. I think their biggest problem is, Jeff, everybody sort of thought that Sean Payton had sort of reformed Jameis Winston out of being the turnover machine. And I kept saying before the season, there's a lot of talent on that defense. There's Kamara, there's great receivers, but that quarterback turns the ball over a lot. And everybody sort of hit me with, nah, he's past that. He's not that guy anymore. I just didn't believe that part of it. But I hear you, man. Again, that's a situation with a team, the Raiders and the Saints. You're right. Great parallels there. There's a lot of talent, but something's off.
Doesn't Jameis Winston feel like the Jeff George of this era? Like you see all the talent, number one pick, can sling the football a mile, will make the impressive throw, and then he'll just turn into a Jeff George on you.
Yeah, totally. I think he probably cares a little bit more in a weird way, although he's his own kind of knucklehead off the field. Jeff George would almost say to you, like, just where's my paycheck, man? Like, let's go. But yeah, both guys have cannons and both guys have talent, and it's just going to ultimately be wasted.
Just looking around the league, I mean, it's hard to find a team right now that I could say they're the best team in football. Do we really want to say it's the Eagles and Dolphins right now? Because I'm still in the belief that Kansas City's really good, Green Bay's really good. I think Tampa's there. I don't think the Rams have figured things out. But if you had to rank your five right now, who are the five best teams?
I still go Kansas City in a big way. Look, you're not going to go undefeated. You're going to have losses here and there, but I still think it's Kansas City. Packers, I still want to see a little bit more development out of their young kids. The thing that we discount, I think, with Green Bay and Tampa Bay, we tend to just always go offense first and hyper focus on offense. They're both phenomenal defensively, and that's the thing you can't, like, that travels well, that does well in the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. So what you really need from Tampa's standpoint is you got to sort of get through this period right now. Like, if you're Brady, you're sort of half checked out, but you're there, but you're throwing it like you and me, and he's got to be frustrated at that right now. But you got to kind of get through that. If you get through that and get these guys back healthy, your defense is so nasty. I almost envision it this way, Jeff, and I don't think Brady's shot like Peyton Manning was in his last year with Denver. I don't mean by that, but The offense isn't what it was, but your defense can carry you so far. The thing with Green Bay is if these young kids even develop to a competent level, Rodgers is going to get them there. So I would put both of those up there with Kansas City. The thing is with the Chargers, losing Slater's a big one. I would have said to you, if you asked me this, yesterday before we knew Slater was out for the season, I'd say I think the Chargers will get close. It just feels like there's too much going on there. So I wouldn't put them in that category. I do think the Eagles are in that discussion. I do. Miami, I'm not sold yet. They've had sort of a couple miracle wins, and maybe that speaks to their, just the fact that they never say die. And that's a good attribute for a team. But I'm not sold on them yet. If I'm trying to think of some other.
Obviously, Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo would probably be the other one. I look at that Buffalo game as more of an anomaly than anything else. Some mistake-riddled stuff. And, I mean, let's face it, what were they without? 6 starters in that game? Yeah. And a lot of them on the defensive side, including the defensive backfield. So that's one. I guess I'm glad you pointed out Buffalo. I'd probably still go Buffalo number 1.
My issue with the Bills right now is, and I pointed this out too, these one-score games, they keep losing them. There are reasons they keep losing them. It's like Josh Allen, he misses a wide-open receiver on 4th and goal. He skips it. He can't get a spike off. Isaiah McKenzie can't get out of balance. It's just little stupid things like the 13 seconds against Kansas City last year. This should not happen. Buffalo should have won that game on Sunday.
Yeah, you're right. And the other thing is, because Allen and some other things in Diggs have been such a spectacular, like they got to get more consistent and be committed to running the game. Committed's kind of the key word there. Stay committed to running it. Take a little bit of heat off of Allen. We all know how talented he is. We all know he's probably the front runner to win the MVP and all those kind of things. But, he's also another one taking a lot of shots, some very unnecessary in my estimation. They got to stay committed to that. You're right. I love Sean McDermott, but he's got to show you that they can't have these meltdowns late in games. There's just been too many of those collectively as a team from Buffalo. So that's the thing with them. I need to see like almost a maturity level with them. Kansas City, I feel like is going to be fine. Like whatever that was last week, it is. Yeah, they're going to be okay. I think they'll learn from. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I think they're going to be okay. I think there's probably 6 teams in the league that I would put in the upper echelon. The Eagles would be one of them in the upper echelon category. And then, man, the drop after that is like everybody's fending for themselves after that.
So my MVP vote, if I had to make one right now, I know we're only in 3 weeks. Jalen Hurts is definitely up there. But when I watch Lamar Jackson with a 4th-string left tackle do what he's doing, I got to give him the edge. I do. No disrespect to Jalen, but his offensive line's healthy. He's got really good receivers. He's got a lot of talent there. And I think Jalen Hurts deserves all the credit in the world for that. But when you're seeing what Lamar's doing with all the injuries he has, you got to give it to him at this point.
Yeah, Lamar's playing at a different level than anybody else right now. And, I think Baltimore's a really good blueprint for the Eagles in that they just said, you know what? We may have wanted it to do a certain way. Screw that. We are catering everything around this guy. And I think that was a really smart approach. And I think the Eagles have done that to an extent here with Jalen Hurts. But you're right. He's playing. This is a fascinating case study, Jeff, because Baltimore to me is like the creme de la creme of organizations, the way they generally handle things the right way. And I understand, look, he may be asking for stuff that is just outrageous to the point where if you're a front office, you're saying like, we can't do this. And he doesn't have an agent, which makes everything really sketchy. But every single game that this guy plays, that price tag just keeps going. And he bet on himself, and this may be the ultimate bet on yourself. It's like an Aaron Judge bet on yourself kind of situation where not only did you take the risk as the player, you're killing it at a different kind of level, and it's going to get you an all-time contract. He's going to get more than Deshaun Watson got. He is. He's going to get more guaranteed money, and he's going to get more money, period. If I'm Baltimore, I'm trying everything I can to get this thing taken care of, but I would agree. He's the MVP frontrunner right now. What he's doing with his arms and his legs. And the other thing is he doesn't have a great receiving core. You point out the offensive line, you're right, but who are these marquee names other than Mark Andrews that he's throwing to?
Rashad Bateman's pretty. I mean, Devin Duvernay has 4 touchdowns.
They're developing, but they're not names, necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a fantasy football player, you're taking those receivers just because they're 1 and 2 by default. But yeah, you're right. And I'll tell you what really bothered me about the Deshaun contract. Take the off the field stuff aside. Andrew Berry gave this guy $230 million guaranteed. He didn't play football in a year, and I'm like, I swear the Browns did this so they could price Lamar out of Baltimore and have him go somewhere else.
I wouldn't put it past. I think every organization in the league, they'll never say this publicly, said to themselves, like, are you kidding me with that? The way that you just set the market with that contract for this guy with this sketchy past and everything that's going on, and you give him the real low base this year because you knew he was going to get the fact that the league allowed it is ridiculous. Yeah, that screwed everything up, man. It's going to affect the Eagles too with Jalen Hurts. Like that contract really, really put into play like a lot of things that probably shouldn't have, around the league. And Cleveland deserves the wrath of a lot of the organizations for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look at what it's done to Arizona with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is not worth that.
Not a fan.
Arizona, this is what bothers me with the Cardinals, watching that Rams-Cardinals game. I got sick and tired of the slow starts, Cliff Kingsbury I don't know what he does at the beginning of games. It seems like they don't game plan. They don't practice. And he kind of leaves Murray out on an island. Okay, you do it. You fix it. And he's thrown to guys named Greg Dortch. I mean, look, I get it. They're banged up at receiver. But they got so many issues on that team. And I just don't think Cliff Kingsbury makes it.
I don't like the combo. I don't like the combo of either one of them. And it took, let's face it, all right, credit to the Cardinals, but an absolute collapse by the Raiders for them to even have a win. And yes, is Murray a spectacular athlete? Sure. But is he ultimately a winning quarterback? I don't know. Like there's too much for me with body language with that guy. And I don't know if you have the leadership gene. Like the one thing we never questioned with Jalen Hurts is leadership, right? And those guys love him and they love playing for him. I don't know that that's the case with Kyler Murray. I think that his teammates view him as a spectacular athlete, but I don't know if they really want to go to battle with that guy as much. And your point about King, I don't understand why Kingsbury got that job to begin with. He underachieved at Texas Tech. He underachieved with Pat Mahomes. And let's give him a job. Like he was basically run out of there. How many times you see a guy run out of college and then given a lifeline of a head coaching job in the NFL? Like I would have understood if you would have hired him as an offensive coordinator. You think, oh, this guy has got that kind of mind. Okay, maybe. But yeah, I don't like it at all. And they're trying to get by. I get it without DeAndre Hopkins, and that's no fun. Life gets a lot easier when he gets back. But that division's nowhere near as tough as maybe we thought it was.
No, if you look across the board, Seattle stinks. I'm sorry, they're just a bad football team. I still think the 49ers are going to be good. I'm willing to write off that Jimmy Garoppolo performance just because first start, he didn't have the full. I mean, he practiced, but how that summer went for him. Yeah. So I'm writing that one off. The Rams just don't look like the Rams yet.
It's hard to repeat, man. It's hard to repeat. It's not, even the AFC West may not be what we thought it was.
No, I had a tweet saved in the draft for when I thought Denver was going to lose Sunday night. No one has ever beaten the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Why did we waste this whole offseason doing it? And I never got to send it in. Everybody on Chiefs Radio is like, you should have just sent it anyway. I'm like, I should have, but Denver's 2-1. And I have a feeling that their offense is, no matter what Nathaniel Hackett has done, I think their offense is going to get better as the season goes on.
Yeah, look, Denver's defense is so good. It's another team. Like we rightfully so focus on Russell Wilson. Their defense is really good, right? But I don't know, man. Does he look like the same guy to you? I don't know if this is just a system thing or he's lost a little bit. And man, you gave him a lot and you gave up a lot to get him. You better hope he's a lot better. And that, again, his defense might carry him enough where they get in. I thought from the jump that division would cannibalize itself, and it still kind of feels that way. The Chargers are really banged up right now out there. It just feels like the Chiefs are the cream of the crop, and the Raiders have just completely disappointed, as we talked about.
It really does suck that Rashawn Slater got hurt like he did.
It does.
And again, Brandon Staley's another one, another McVay guy. I don't understand why Justin Herbert was in that game late. I don't buy the whole he wanted to be out there for his team. You got Jalen Guyton hurt late in that game because you had him out there. Slater's not playing. Like, Justin Herbert is your franchise quarterback. I don't care what people say about him. He is a franchise quarterback. He's a top 5 quarterback in this league. You have to protect him. And Brandon Staley is just like, oh, he wanted to be out there with his teammates in 38-10 game. And Brandon, someone who's thought to Justin Herbert, I know he's probably thinking that, but you're Chargers, you're Tom Telesco. You got to say, hey, man, let's turn it back a bit.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes you got to protect these guys from themselves. And I appreciate what a gamer he is. I wouldn't have let him play. I flat out would not have let him play in that game. And with ribs, the problem is it's any kind of like oblique rib kind of thing. It doesn't necessarily just go away. And you think about the amount of shots that guys take, even if it's not directly to the rib cage, you just get knocked down. What that can feel like. If anybody's ever had bad ribs, you sneeze or cough the wrong way and it kills, let alone a 300-pound guy, going into you. So yeah, I mean, they're in a little bit of trouble. Like they're kind of right now, kind of teetering, I would say. They're on a really dangerous sort of path. The weird reaction from Staley, not after this past game, the week before when he initially got hurt, they asked him right after the game, "Hey, do you think it's anything serious? Do you think he'll play next week?" "Yeah, I think it'll be all right." And they're like, "Whoa, why do you think that?" "Well, because he's Justin Herbert." Like, yeah. Really? Like, I know what he was trying to say, but dude, don't do that. Give it hey, I even talk to my medical people and let's see. Because you sort of put pressure on Herbert to play when you say that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, he really changed his tune after Sunday because he even said, maybe I underestimated this. Like, it is a week-to-week thing. As you guys know, it ain't going to get any better by him playing or not playing. It's going to be there. And I think he's admitting, hey, look, this is going to be a problem for weeks, for months. It's, and he said, as an organization, we got to start making some better decisions here. Like, I think he was kind of calling out his front office.
Maybe. I mean, and the other thing is, like, do you really want to, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if they shot him up or not, but
I think they did.
Do you really want to keep doing that every week with this guy? I don't. Like, I'll bite the bullet for his long-term future because he's the organization's long-term future.
Yeah, that's the issue with the Chargers right now. It really does feel like in the AFC West, it's going to be Kansas City and Denver just because of Denver's defense. But
right.
I'm already writing the Raiders off.
I'm with you. I've written them off too.
Yeah, them and the Titans. I think I agree with you, Rob. They're the two teams where I'm just like not sold on them. NFC, I'm starting to think that way with Washington. I think Washington's a better team than what they should Sunday, but they don't.
I wonder what that looks like, Jeff. I'm sure you talked about it a ton yesterday. So did we on Sports Take. But I mean, like, if you're seeing these same patterns with Wentz, the holding the ball too long, and I'm not excusing his offensive line, they stunk too. But if it looks like this by week, I don't know, 10, like, are you still rolling him out? I know the money and all that. I know what you gave up, but I almost feel like Heineke might be a better option. I don't think he's great by any stretch. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I think it's a one and done for Wentz in Washington. I don't think he's there next year.
Yeah,
I don't know how much longer he plays.
Washington just can't find a quarterback.
No, they can't. No, they can't figure it out. They've tried through the draft. They tried whatever they tried to do with Cousins for with the franchise tag for years. Look, they can't get out of their own white period, and everything starts from the top. We know that. It starts with that guy who owns them. Same with Dallas. As long as those guys are in charge, you got to feel real good if you're Eagles fans.
Yeah. You could say the same thing with Mara and the Giants, but they finally clamped up and actually did some smart moves this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Giants had a good offseason. I think they made the right. You went from a good culture in Buffalo with the coach and the GM, and I think the Maras said, you know what? Let's just get out of the way of this. Let's delegate. Let's hire the right people and let them do their job. I wish it wasn't like that, but it is. I think they're headed in the right path. It's not there yet. It's going to take a couple of years, but they're going to be right in the mix again soon if they get a real quarterback, I think, and add a couple pieces, obviously offensive line.
Before I let you go, doesn't it feel like, though, the NFC East lives in the 90s or the 80s or the 70s a bit? Like, Washington still walks around with those 3 Super Bowl trophies like they won them yesterday. It was 31 years ago. Dallas, we know they live in the past.
Yep.
The Giants are the way they're like, we're the proud New York Giants. We lucked in the 2 Super Bowls recently. So, we don't need to win. And then you got the Eagles, who seem to be the most forward-thinking organization known to man, saying, hey, look, we don't have that prestige. We have the prestige, but we don't have the history of Super Bowl championships like you do, but we're trying to get there.
Yeah, I think maybe the pain of years of being an Eagles fan, maybe it's paying off in that sense that there's nobody's resting on their laurels. Nobody's patting themselves on the back. You have won since 1933. So that in terms of Super Bowls, championships, 4 altogether. But yeah, I think I think it's a pretty good assessment. Certainly that's happening in Dallas. I mean, there's no question. And the days of the Hogs where you hated going to RFK are long over. I mean, that was an embarrassment. You saw the back cover of the Washington Post, Jeff. I mean, I counted it. I literally there's 3 fans in burgundy, and everybody else is in green. That's a disgrace. It's a flat out disgrace.
I had a buddy who went to the game, and they're actually my college roommates. They live in DC. One's a Steelers fan, one's an Eagles fan. He said he saw more Steelers fans there than he did Washington fans. He wore his Pittsburgh hat. So, I mean, that just tells you all you need to know. And I hate to rip on Eagles fans for it because I think it's awesome they travel down there. But I'm like, you guys do know, like, Washington just doesn't care. Like, I'm not as impressed anymore. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, well, look, it's a situation where it's such a good, like I said, it's such a good thing to have the dysfunction of at least 2 of the teams in the organization or in the division. One starting to kind of get it together a little bit in New York. But what that means, Jeff, is now's the time to pounce. Keep building off of this. And the beauty is, as we know, we've talked about a lot, Hurts continues on this trajectory. You have 2 first-round picks to address other areas too. I mean, that is such a beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing. It really is.
Yep. Thank you, Dennis Allen. Thank you, Saints.
Thank you, Jameis. Keep throwing those picks, baby.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Rob. Well, I'm gonna have to let you go. Watch Sports Take at noon today. I'm sure you guys.
Yeah, we have Mike Quick today.
Mike Quick today.
And Tom McCarthy. So we got a couple good ones, man. We're looking forward to it today. Yeah, thank you.
T-Mac's always a good guest, by the way.
He's the best. Well, here's the beauty of T-Mac too. He's done 2 Jacksonville games too. So not only are we going to talk Phillies with him, he's got a real good handle on what Jacksonville's all about too.
Is he doing any NFL this weekend, or is he sticking with the Phillies now?
I don't know about this weekend. He did games the first 2 weekends. I think he just did strictly Phillies games this past. So, but I don't know what he's got coming up. He lands in Chicago at like 10 a.m. So I'll try and find out before the show. But yeah, it's gonna be great. I can't wait to talk to Mike Quick too about Sirianni wearing his jersey. That'd be pretty funny.
I have that jersey, by the way. I'm pretty sure he got that at JAKIB Sports. I'm not gonna.
Shive's the best, by the way, number 1. But the Mike Quick 82 is a classic, man.
Yeah, Nick Sirianni knows how to pander with the best of them.
Yes, I love it. I actually enjoy it.
I do too. Once again, Rob, I appreciate your time. I'll have to get you on in a couple weeks again.
All right, Jeff. Talk soon, man.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Rob.
See ya.